Hi. How's everybody? Welcome. This is Frankenstein Tea, a daily program from the Island Free Library. It is adult story time. These are adult stories. I read something out loud every day at 3. If you're returning, welcome back. If you're new, welcome. This program, it's, different stories every day, different short stories. I read an entire short story each day. Sometimes they're longer than others. Sometimes they're of different genres and variety, different voice, always different. But what's not different is it's me, and I'm here every day at 3 o'clock. I've been here and I will continue to be here. I consider this really great library programming. How awesome is it that we're sharing stories together, and I'm reading from books that you can come and check out of the library someday in the future. That's all just good library stuff there. So I enjoy it. I hope you do. I hope you have a nice, something for the afternoon. We did start this program in winter, so it was nice to think about tea at 3 o'clock. Mine is coffee today. This is adult programming, so yours can be whatever you'd like it to be. It's also a little bit of a check-in, right? We check in with each other and check in with ourselves. So I have a little cheat sheet that I read from every now and then, and I thought I'd start today off with this. The check-in goes like this. Have you had a regular meal? Have you showered? Have you had enough sleep? Are you thinking kind thoughts about yourself? Have you had fresh air? Have you connected with someone you love? And have you moved your body? The one don't on this list is don't compare yourself to others. So that's just a quick check-in that you can sort of, check in with yourself and see how you're doing. If you ever need more help than that, there's lots of help available. If you're on island, there's on-island resources. And if you're off-island, there's off-island resources. So, reduce the stigma there of, needing help. This time continues to be unprecedented and strange and anxiety-driven. So, maybe you need some help. So get the help that you need. That's my plug for today. And maybe what you need is to sit back and enjoy a hot beverage or a cool beverage. And sit back and have me read you a story. So I will. So I'm going to read from Annie. Boy, there was a word I wanted to look up and I didn't. And I'm not even sure how to say her name. I've never been sure how to say her name. What do I do? So this is a volume. This is called Wyoming Stories 2, Bad Dirt. It's by Annie Prolix. How do we say her name? I know I've heard it and I can't do it. Prolix. She wrote the shipping news. And this collection is called Bad Dirt, Wyoming Stories 2. And I am reading from this book called and let me see who published it before I get to tell you who I'm reading. Bad Dirt, Wyoming Stories 2, Annie Prolix. I think that's what it is, Annie Prolix. 2004, published by Scribner in 2004. Annie Prolix. The name of this story is Summer of the Hot Tubs. Elk Tooth, Wyoming, has little going for it beyond the junkyard, despite a population of nearly 80 people. If you want a fancy dinner or batteries or tampons, You drive 44 miles down Dog Ear Creek until you hit Sac, and there are 2 stores and a garage. But Elktooth has its attractions: the 3 bars, Silvertip, the Pee-wee, and Muddy's Hole. The old tradition of pioneer wayside eating houses, road ranches, hangs on as well. There is one of these north of town which serves supper for $3, although there is no menu choice. And Mrs. Polidora uses paper plates, unsatisfactory if you like to hear your fork clink. Paper plates or not, Mrs. Polidora will put a platter of elk steaks on the table, flanked by a big green bowl of mashed potatoes, a pitcher of milk gravy, and a saucer of choke cherry jelly. Somehow she can make that elk last a year. In Elktooth, everyone tries to be a character, and with some success. There is little more to it than being broke, proud, ingenuous, and setting your heels against civilized society's pull. Mrs. Polidora's steady customer is Willie Hewson, who fixes trucks and lawnmowers in a minimal way. He was born and raised in Elktooth, but for years lived in distant cities and distant states, working as a mechanic for United Airlines. When questioned why he left a lucrative job to return to Elktooth, he says, "I couldn't take it no more." What it is, no one asks, for everyone in Wyoming knows of the red hell that lies beyond the state's borders. He lives with a tan dog he calls Igor. Willie Hewson has neither workshop nor garage, but tinkers in the narrow dirt run in front of his trailer. If the job is a big truck, he parks it in the road and lies under it after putting up a folding sign at the curb. The sign says, "Sand her down," which is Willie's way of saying, "Go slow, mechanic in road." Igor, seeing Willie lying in the road, follows his example and has been hit twice. Sometimes, in a burst of energy, Willie continues to work on a vehicle after the problem is repaired, putting in salvaged hoses, running wires to buttons and switches. Deb Sipple, a character himself, once drove away in his 1983 Toyota pickup with a freshly flushed radiator and 11 toggle switches on the dashboard that activated nothing. Mrs. Straw Bird got her Explorer back with an enormous fixed spotlight on top that her husband said would do very well for spotting owls at night or enemy aircraft if it hadn't been that the horn blew every time they switched on the beam. Customers pay what they feel the work is worth. Little that Willie Houston fixes runs longer than 5 days or 50 miles, whichever comes first. But the general feeling is that sometimes that is all you need. It will hold together long enough to get to Sac and the real garage. At one time, Willie Hewson had started to build a garage onto the side of his trailer and framed out a lean-to with poles stolen from Forest Service buck fences. A pole here, another there. He nailed on 4 boards selected randomly from his pile of warped lumber, then quit. It is a point of pride in Elktooth to quit whenever and whatever needs quitting. If Willie Hewson stops working on a lawnmower or skidmobile or truck at a crucial time, it's the owner's tough luck. Nothing can bring him back to something he's quit. He takes his time setting to work, and some vehicles sit in front of the trailer for months before he lifts their hoods. Bartender Amanda Grib, who has once or twice 86'd Willie from the Pee-wee, waited 17 weeks for her 1956 Chevrolet truck and worked up a grudge while she waited. She had taken it to him in the autumn. It was a spring day when she found a grimy postcard in her mailbox. It said, "Fixed. Come get it." She got a lift out to the trailer with Sven Polidora, a little drunk but on his way home 7 miles west of Hewson's trailer. The truck stood forlorn with one wheel in the ditch. She called Willie's name, but there was no answer. She shrugged and got into the truck. There was a note on the seat. Leave money in mailbox. She turned on the ignition first. No point in leaving money if it still didn't run. And tremendous explosions shook the vehicle. Fire spurted out the back end of the truck. The engine died. She looked in the rearview mirror and saw dozens of small burning objects scattered on Willie Hewson's grass, setting it on fire. She got out. Once she got beyond the idea of a terrorist attack, the nuggets of fire looked familiar. One or two that had escaped ignition were plainly dog kibble. She scooped up the smoldering lumps with a tin can lying in the yard. She guessed that during the winter, some enterprising mouse had stolen dog food from Igor's dish and packed it away in the tailpipe of the truck. She put the smoking can in Willie's mailbox along with a nickel, restarted the truck, and drove back to town, trailing a stream of sparks and some coarse language. Last summer, a kind of madness swept through Elktooth, a passion for outdoor hot tubs. No one, of course, bought one. All of them were fashioned from scrap metal, old stock tanks, and odds and ends found at Donald's rawhide cowboy junkyard. The more fastidious built plank boardwalks around the tub perimeters to keep dirt and cactus spines out of the water. In a fuel pinch, sections of the walk could be tossed into the firebox. All the hot tubs were heated by wood-fired stoves. Willie Hewson sets his heels not only against the outside world, but against Elktooth's social leaders, was a holdout, full of scorn for outdoor bathing. If I want to soak my ass, I'll drive up to Thermopolis and its famed hot springs was a 240 miles distant from Elktooth and clogged with tourists. A willingness to go there, said Deb Sipple, showed how Willie's mind had been damaged by out-of-state residents. Thing is, said Sipple, I seen his expression when he was looking at my hot tub. He'd give his left nut have a one just like it. Near the end of the summer, Willie Hewson visited his grandmother on the old family ranch near Lingle, where the Hewsons had run cows since 1872. Foraging through an equipment shed, he came across an object that screamed, hot tub. Better than hot tub, it screamed, weird and unique hot tub, unlike and better than any other. With the help of his Uncle Doug and two of Doug's boys, Pliers and Rammy, he got it into Willie's truck. He started back to Elktooth, singing Wrong-Eyed Jesus along with Jim White. His uncle chased after him for 6 miles, pulled abreast, and shouted into the rushing wind, Do you want the tripod? Hell yes. I only got the one engine hoist, and I needed a hoist engines. Back in Elktooth, he made some effort to put his prize in a secluded spot. But given the nature of his property, a narrow strip of ground between a sheer cliff and the road, crowded with the house trailer, the lumber piles, 7 or 8 defunct trucks for parts, the 4-board garage, the doghouse, a dozen dead lawnmowers, a pile of stone, another of gravel, and a single young cottonwood tree, there was no secluded spot. Fuck 'em, said Willie Hewson. He offloaded the enormous inch-thick cast iron pot, 3 feet across, and last used in 1912 by some unknown biscuit hurler in the long-ago Hewson Fall Roundup. He jimmied it into place near the cottonwood, about 5 feet from the road. It swayed ponderously from the massive tripod chain. After a search, Willie found 2 cut lengths of hose and taped them together. The tape held long enough to fill the kettle halfway, which he thought, figuring displacement, would be about right. A flotsam of mouse droppings, straw chaff, and rust particles floated to the surface. Adhering to the bottom was a crust of 90-year-old dried son of a bitch stew. He split a few sticks of kindling, started a fire beneath the pot with a curl of tar paper, added chunkwood. Smoke rose. While he waited for the water to heat, he practiced shooting at the wasp's nest in the cottonwood with his .22 pistol. At last, steam rose from the kettle. There was a heavy and peculiar smell. He raked the coals and smoking wood out from under the pot and stripped down, dabbing his clothes over the projecting ends of the boards in the nearby lumber pile. The remnant of the son of a bitch stew, the size of a cow pie, had loosened from the bottom and floated on top of the water. He scooped it out with his hand and sent it flying into the road. The water in the tub was plenty hot. He put in one foot, then the other. The water rose above his knees. The water was very hot, but not as hot as the iron bottom of the pan, which roasted the soles of his feet. He got out, danced in the cool dirt, pulled on his boots. Now the boots were full of grit. He felt the rim of the pot. It was warm, but not searing. He decided on a different entry trajectory and lowered himself until his more tender parts hung over the water. And there he paused, suspended, as Mr. and Mrs. Ulysses Bird, brother and sister-in-law of Strawbird, drove slowly by. Mrs. Bird started to wave, looked again, thought better of it. Ulysses Bird walked into the Pee Wee bar and said, "God damn, we just seen something. Willie Hewson got himself a cannonball pot hot tub. He looked like a missionary was going to get it boiled." He described the tub, the closeness of it to the road, the agonized expression on Willie's face as he sat hastily in the water, Mrs. Bird's expression and exclamations as she thought of how she had almost waved. Amanda Grib, who was tending bar, listened closely. "Hey," she said in her loud bartender voice, "get on back there with this." She opened the refrigerator and took out a package of frozen corn and a half-empty jar of maraschino cherries, foraged in the cupboard for a can of chili powder. "Drop these in his goddamn cannonball hot tub. If he's gonna cook himself, let's get some flavor in there. Hell, I'll come with you. Shake that chili where it will do some good." They went as quickly as they could, but Willie Hewson was gone. Clothes, gravelly boots, truck, and all. The pot steamed. The water was still hot, and in it floated a wasp's nest. A few puzzled wasps flew around the cottonwood tree. There were wet footprints in the dust. There was no sense in wasting the chili, corn, and cherries if Willie wasn't in his soup pot. There would probably be another time. As they turned to leave, Ulysses Strawbird stepped on the son of a bitch stew, which, under the influence of the hot water, had metamorphosed into a black jellyfish. It clung to his boot like tar. He scraped it off with a stick, got the stick pronged into it, and held it up. It swung, glistening. "Seems like it's fresh, whatever it is," he said. "It got the right shape, but I doubt it ever came out of the south end of a cow. Looks more like a platypus's afterbirth." Amanda Grib suddenly took the stick from his hand and flipped the blob into the hot tub. "There, let him find that in his cannibal pot." Over the weeks, the drought dried up the water in the cannibal hot tub, and once again, the son of a bitch stew lies dormant at the bottom. It was only last month that Willie Hewson reappeared driving a 1949 Land Rover and with a non-English speaking Tibetan girlfriend at his side, two items which earned him towering status points in the Elk-Tooth eccentricity race. He didn't even glance at the cannibal pot. He had quit that. That was Annie Prolix from a collection called Bad Dirt, Wyoming Stories 2. A little bit different from us New Englanders, huh? A little different. Thanks so much for coming to Frankenstein Tea. I hope you enjoyed the story. I hope you have a great afternoon. We'll see you here tomorrow at 3 o'clock for another story. Bye. Bye, Dad.